what you have on the board is there's two things that we have not addressed in section 5.8 and 5.9. This is from 5.8, this is from 5.9. We're gonna hit the one from 5.9 first, okay? 5.9, and some of you already tried to do it. This was the problem 50, 52, and 54, which we hadn't done in class yet. Literally, I'm allowed to have imaginary numbers on this side over here. Okay, this is with imaginary numbers. So I'm gonna solve for the x. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the 36 to the other side. So I have 4x equals negative 36, 4x squared. Okay, then I'm gonna divide by the 4, just like I was solving for an unknown. And I have x squared is equal to negative 9. But normally I would say, okay, I can't do this problem. How do I get rid of something that's squared?
Square root.
I take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And normally I would say, you can't take the square root of a negative. But now that you know about imaginary numbers, you can. So this is equal to x. What is that equal to? Using my 3i. There you go. Oops, as I. Now, typically you'll do that, plus or minus 3i. Okay? That's where they get the plus or minus from when they did it. Okay? There's nothing to those problems. Okay? You already know how to do everything. The only thing that they've added is now when you have the square root of a negative number, you don't say empty set. You don't say it can't be done. You go, oh yeah, it can be done. That's the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 9, so it's 3i. Okay? Let's do another one of those on that side of the board. All right, how am I going to solve that? I'm going to subtract the 72. So I have a squared equals negative 72. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to take the square root of both sides, so I'm going to get a is equal to the square root, and it's literally plus or minus the square root, because we know that from earlier, okay? And this time they want you to do that, because they want it solved. Okay, 72, what can I break that down into? I know negative 1, right? And you've got to pull the negative 1 out. Okay, what equals 72 that I can take the square root of?
2 times
2,
36.
okay, I'm going to go with the 2 times 36 because the 36 is higher, and I'm going to get there quicker. Now, you could have gotten the 9 and 8, but then you'd have to break down the 8. Okay, so then I'm going to have like that. So when I write this, it's plus or minus, what's the square root of 36? 6. So it's plus or minus 6i on the square root of 2. This is I, this is 6. So it's 6i square root of 32. And it's always plus or minus. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, nothing real hard about that. Okay, this side. Okay, this was from section 5.8. So this is 5.8. This is 5.9. Okay? Doesn't look like much like a 9. We did ones that had equal signs in it. And I told you to skip the ones that had inequalities. But then we never went back and did them. Okay? We are going to solve this, but there's going to be a little trick to this. Because over here I can't have imaginary numbers. So if I was going to solve it with the inequalities, what am I going to do first to solve for the x?
Take the 3 over.
I'm going to take the 3 over. So I have got the square root of 4x minus 5 is less than or equal to 7, right? Now what am I going to do? I'm going to square both sides. When I square the left-hand side, I get 4x minus 5. When I square the right-hand side, I get 49. Okay? Now I have to solve it. I'm going to add 5, which is going to be, what, 54? Okay? And then I'm going to divide by the 4. Somebody tell me what it is real quick.
13.5.
13.5. 13.5 is good. Okay, so I got a 13.5. Okay, now, it really is not all my numbers less than 13.5. To figure out the little window that I have, I also have to take this part of it. And I go, under normal circumstances, that has to be greater than 0. greater than or equal to 0. Because I can't take a square root of a negative if I don't use imaginary numbers. So then what I do is I set up the part that's underneath the square root. And I say that has to equal, it can equal 0. I can take the square root of 0, which is 0. But it can't be a negative number, so it's got to be greater than or equal to it. So when I solve this, I have 4x is greater than or equal to 5. I have x is greater than or equal to 5 over 4, which is 1.25, right? So then I look on my number line, and I go 1.25 and 13.5, and I want to test these areas to see if they work. So I just pick a solution, like let's say I pick, well, less than 1.5, 0 would be the easiest thing to pick that's less than 1.5. So if I put 0 in here, does it work? 0 times 4 is 0. 0 minus 5, oh, I'm taking the square root of a negative, and I'm saying I can't do that, okay, because no imaginary numbers here. Okay, so this part, it doesn't work. I picked 0 just because that was easy to do. Okay, I could pick 1. 1 is less than 1.25. I just have to pick a number that's less than 1.25. Then I have to pick a number that's between here. Pick a number that's between there. 7. Okay, so if I plug 7 in, I have 28 minus 5, which is 23. Somebody take the square root of 23 on their calculator.
Big number. This
Of
number.
1 point.
Okay,
4.8.
round it. 4.1?
4.8.
4.8 is
Yeah.
what it rounds to? Okay, 4.8 plus 3 is 7.8. Is that less than 10? Is 7.8 less than 10? Okay, that works. Okay, something bigger than 13.5. Let's pick 20, okay? So I have 20 times 4, which is 80. 80 minus 5, which is 75. Somebody take the square root of 75.
8.66.
Okay, 8.63 plus 3 is going to give me 11.6. Is that less than 10? 11.6 is not less than 10. Okay, so therefore I know my answer is greater than or equal to 1.5, less than or equal to 13.5. Or you can draw the number line and just put your check mark in there. Okay, let's do another one of those. Okay, because you're trying to find a range of numbers is what you're trying to find with these, because they're inequalities. It's not just one number. So let's do another
So
one.
the rest of it is just checking your answer?
Yes, yes, absolutely. This and that give me the two answers that I need to check. You know, I put those on a number line, not being real detailed, and I check to the left of the smallest number, in between the number, and to the right of the
So
biggest
like,
numbers.
outside of making careless mistakes, like is it ever possible to get a number and it not work? Like you get
I don't think they're gonna give you one that doesn't work. It's not impossible, but I don't think they're going to give you one. Let's do another one of these. Okay, I want to solve it first. Now, I probably would go ahead and add the square root of n to that side, so I don't have to deal with the FOIL on it as big. Otherwise, you got to do FOIL on that, that's going to be difficult. So I'm going to rewrite it like this. N plus 12 is equal to, or greater than, it's not equal to, greater than 2 plus the square root of n. Oh, how's I put it 2? Okay, you with me? Okay, now how am I going to solve it? I'm going to square both sides. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to get n plus 12. On the right-hand side, I'm going to get 4, and for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and do the FOIL on it. Okay, 4 plus 2 on the square root of n plus n. That's what I get when I do FOIL, okay? Now I begin to solve this thing. If I add a negative n to both sides, it's gone, okay? I've got 12 is greater than or equal to 4 plus 2 on the square root of n. I can add a negative 4 to both sides, so I have 8 is greater than 2 on the square root of n. I can divide by 2. Remember, if I divide by a negative, what do I have to do to the sign? If I divide by negative
Yeah,
numbers,
flip it.
I've got to switch it, but I'm not doing that here. Okay, so I'm gonna get 4 is greater than the square root of n. If I wanna put my variable on the left-hand side, it's the square root of n is less than 4. How do I get rid of the square root? Square it. So n is gonna be less than 16, right? Now, so that's one answer. Now, my other answer on this one, that one has to be greater than 0. So I have n plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0, but I also have another square root, so I have n has to be greater than 0, right? That one's already solved for you. Okay? These have to be positive numbers or 0. You cannot take the square root of a negative number because we're not using imaginary numbers. So when I solve this, I'm going to get negative 12, right? So I'm looking at this, and that, and I put them all on a number line. I have a negative 12, I have a 0, and I have a positive 16. Then I have to test, okay? This particular problem, if I graphed it, would hit the x-axis twice, so there can be different parts that it's shaded. Okay, negative 12, something less than that, let's take negative 20. Okay, if I put negative 20, well, I'll just put it here. Negative 20. Can I take the square root of negative 20 without imaginary numbers? No. Okay, if I cannot use imaginary numbers, I cannot take the square root of a negative number, right? That doesn't work. Anything in between here? Negative 10. What if I put a negative 10 right there? Could I do it? Can I take the square root of a negative 10 without imaginary numbers? You're looking confused.
That was so fast, the entire thing.
Can I do that without imaginary numbers? If I can't use imaginary numbers, can I do that? No. So those two don't work. So let me pick something in between 0 and 10,
7.
Or 0 and 16. What would you pick?
7.
7, okay. So this is going to be the square root of 19 minus the square root of 7. Somebody do that on a calculator and tell me if it works. No, you can't do it like that. What is it when you do it?
4.0.
Okay, is that greater than 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so in between there works. Okay, then I'm going to pick something greater than that. So let's pick 20. So this is going to be the square root of 32 minus the square root of 20. Do that and tell me if it's greater than 2.
5 point, so yes.
That's greater than 2. Okay, so here's what I know. Everything 0 and above works. Or you can just leave that.
I believe that the entire thing was like
Yeah,
over.
you're not gonna have much like that,
That was-
okay? I'm more worried about that than what I am these, but you're gonna have a couple of
Okay,
these.
that's easy, that,
Right.
I don't really understand
Okay.
whatsoever.
Alright, so real quick, this is your homework, okay? Now, there's not gonna be a lot right here. It's Wednesday. And what we're doing is we're just making up the stuff from the other section. So, on page 307, I want you to do 26, 32, and that might be it. Oh, and 40. Okay.
It's got like,
We get 3
you're
problems?
trying so hard.
I'm not done.
It went like this.
Page 315. I want you to do we're gonna do 50 through, no, I'm not.
50 minus.
That's gonna give you a lot, I don't wanna do that.
59.
Okay, 50 through 55, all. And then I want you to do, and these are kind of challenge problems, but you already know how to do them. I want you to do 56 and 58. Okay?
So why didn't you just put 50 for 56?
Why didn't I go 50, do what?
Because you put 50 through 55 all, and then you put 56 down there. Why didn't you just go 50
I
through
should have,
56?
but I
all?
didn't.
We give you.
Because they were in two different sections for one thing.